72 hours. In the context of a human life, it is nothing. A long weekend. A delay at an airport.
But in the deep ocean, 72 hours is a mathematical wall. It is the precise limit of how long two...
There were 12 minutes. If the winch had stalled or the crane jammed, they would have been pulling up a coffin.
This is the story of the deepest submarine rescue in history. A rescue that was mathematically impossible.
August 29th, 1973. The Celtic Sea. 150 miles off the coast of Ireland.
Roger Chapman and Roger Mallinson were not thrill seekers. They were engineers, serious men doing a dangerous job.
Mallinson was a brilliant mechanic. He knew every bolt of the Pisces 3. He had spent the last 24 hours repairing a broken robotic arm.
Chapman was a former Royal Navy officer. Disciplined. Calm. A man who followed procedure.
Their mission was routine, burying a telephone cable on the seabed to protect it from fishing trawlers.
The submersible was tiny, 6 feet in diameter, crammed with valves, switches, and 2 grown men.
They spent 8 hours in the dark, blasting mud with water jets. It was cold, grueling work.
Shift over. They blew the ballast tanks to surface. They were exhausted. They just wanted a hot meal.
9:18 a.m. They breached the surface. But the Atlantic Ocean was waiting for them. The weather had turned. The swell was massive. The recovery phase is the most dangerous part of any dive. A diver swam out to attach the tow line. It was a standard procedure. Until physics took over. A diver swam out to attach the tow line. It was a standard procedure. Until physics took over. The line was attached. The winch on the mothership engaged. The slack tightened. The ship heaved up just as the sub dropped. The tension on the line spiked instantly.
The rope didn't just break. It snapped with the force of a cannon shot.
The recoil sent the heavy rope whipping backward. It wrapped around the aft machinery sphere.
It caught the locking handle of the rear hatch and ripped it sheer off. The seal was destroyed.
Instantly, a ton of seawater flooded the machinery bay.
The sub lost its balance. It went vertical, bow to the sky, stern dragging it down. Inside, the pilots were helpless passengers. They were thrown against the bulkheads.
The tow line went slack. They began to fall. This wasn't a glide. It was a plummet. They fell like a stone dropped down a well.
The depth gauge spun so fast they couldn't read it. They were falling at 40 miles per hour.
They didn't know the depth. If they hit deep water, the pressure would crush the hull like a soda can.
By a miracle, Mallinson had changed the oxygen scrubber tank just before the dive. A fresh tank.
If he hadn't done that routine maintenance, they would have suffocated in 30 hours.
Even with a full tank, the math was brutal. They had 72 hours of air.
Maximum. But panic burns oxygen. To survive, they had to do the impossible. They had to stop moving.
They made a nest out of seat cushions. They huddled together.
The ocean outside was freezing. The sub became an icebox. They had to stop shivering to save oxygen.
They had 1 cheese sandwich and a can of lemonade.
They didn't eat.
Digestion burns oxygen.
On the surface, the alarm went out.
Mayday! Submersible down!
This was 1973. There was no global rescue force. They had to build one from scratch.
In Canada, the Pisces 5 was loaded onto a military transport plane. Canadian pilots and engineers scrambled to fly their sub across the Atlantic.
In California, the U.S. Navy deployed the CUR-4 a robot designed to recover nuclear bombs.
Back in the trap, the clock was ticking. 10 hours gone. 20 hours gone.
The crew on the mothership worked through the night to rebuild the dismantled Pisces 2.
They launched it. It was their first hope.
But the ocean is cruel. A buoyancy tank ruptured halfway down.
It had to abort. The first rescue attempt failed.
Inside the trap, they heard the rescue sub turn back. Despair set in.
The Canadian ship John Cabot arrived. The Pisces 5 was launched.
Pisces V descended. But the seabed was a maze of canyons and rocks.
Finding a tiny sphere in the dark is like finding a golf ball on a football field at night.
The Canadian pilots searched for hours. Their batteries were draining.
Then, a visual. They found them.
Chapman saw the light. A star in the darkness.
But finding them wasn't enough. They had to hook a line. The current was ripping.
The robotic arm was clumsy. The current buffeted the sub around. Desperate, they snapped a hook onto the propeller shroud. It wasn't a lift point.
Pisces 5 had to surface. They left a guideline.
On the surface, a gale blew in. The waves were 15 feet high.
The guidelines snapped. They were back to zero. "60 hours. The air was turning foul. Carbon dioxide was building up.
They wrote letters to their wives. They apologized for not coming home.
The scrubber was failing. They were drifting into the long sleep.
One card left to play. The U.S. Navy robot, CURV-3.
But even the robot had an electrical fault. They had to fix it on the deck, in the rain.
68 hours gone. The robot launched.
The pilot had to fly a remote control robot 1,500 feet down in a storm.
He had to thread a needle with a bulldozer.
He found the wreck. The men inside weren't moving.
He lined up the toggle hook with the open hatch.
Forward. Steady.
Clunk. It was in.
But the lift is the most dangerous part.
The mud refused to let go. The winch groaned. With a violent jerk, they broke free.
Drove through the dying men across the cabin.
The long ascent began. 2 hours to the surface.
If the cable snapped now, there was no backup, no oxygen left.
At 350 feet, they stopped. The robot was tangled.
They had to untangle the lines. Every second was precious.
100 feet. Almost there.
"1:17 p.m. They breached!
Divers swarmed the sub, but they couldn't open the hatch yet. They hoisted it onto the deck.
The technicians attacked the bolts. They were rusted shut.
The seal broke. The smell of death wafted out.
Were they alive? A hand reached up. They were alive.
While the medics worked, the lead engineer checked the oxygen.
He tapped the gauge. It was empty. He checked the flow rates. He ran the numbers.
They had 12 minutes of breathable air left.
If the robot had missed once, if the winch had slipped,
They survived by sheer force of will, by slowing their bodies down.
And because Mallinson changed that tank before the dive.
the rescue changed history. It proved we could reach the deep. But the ocean doesn't care about history. It is vast and indifferent.
It only respects the rules of physics. Pisces 30 sits in a museum today, a metal shell. Roger Chapman went on to save lives, founding a rescue company.
Roger Mallinson never forgot the sound of that ticking clock.
We often think we conquer nature,
but we are just guests in the deep.
Fragile biology in a world of crushing geology.
The margin between life and death is thinner than we think.
"12 minutes.
The fleet dispersed. The ocean returned to normal. The traces of the struggle washed away. But the lesson remained. Sometimes, the impossible is just a problem, waiting for a solution.
And sometimes, the math is wrong.
For the men of the Pisces Third,
time was...